You pretend money doesn't matter to you, but every decision in your life revolves around it. You choose where to live, who to date, even the dreams you allow yourself to have. And worst of all, you know it. You know you're living a lie, pretending that lack of money isn't controlling your every move, every breath, every sleepless night. My name is Solomon. I've been called the richest man in history. But I need to tell you a secret that few people know. My greatest wealth was never the gold that gleamed in my palaces. It was discovering that true fortune lives in your head, not in your bank account. Today, you're going to discover why you're losing money before you even earn it, why your financial decisions are sabotaging your future, and most importantly, how to transform your mind into a magnet for prosperity using the same principles that made me rule nations. This isn't about magic formulas or investment strategies. It's about you stopping being a slave to your own limiting beliefs and starting to think like true royalty. Because when you master the fear of scarcity, money becomes just a consequence. You didn't come here by accident. Your soul is crying out for real transformation. So give me the next few minutes of your life, and I'll show you how to clean the dirty mirror of your financial mind and reflect true abundance. If this resonates with you, if you're ready for this profound change, subscribe to this channel now, because those who seek wisdom before seeking wealth have already taken the first step to becoming unstoppable. Number 1. The true origin of wealth. According to Solomon, have you ever noticed that you know people who made fortunes and lost everything, and others who, even with little, always prosper? This bothers you because it exposes a truth you'd rather not see. Wealth has nothing to do with luck, connections, or perfect timing. It has to do with something happening inside your head right now as you listen to me. I am Solomon. I ruled the most prosperous kingdom in history. My coffers overflowed with gold. My lands stretched beyond the horizon, and kings from distant nations came seeking my wisdom. But I need to confess something few people know. My greatest wealth was never the gold that gleamed in my palaces. It was the discernment that allowed me to make right decisions even before I had money to support them. True wealth is born in your mind, not in your bank account. It springs from the invisible decisions you make when no one is watching, from how you face an overdue bill, from how you treat a penny or a dollar, from how you talk about money when you're alone. These secret moments are the true builders or destroyers of your prosperity. Let me tell you about a merchant I met in Jerusalem. He came to my court with torn clothes and wounded feet, but he carried something in his eyes that I immediately recognized. It wasn't desperation. It was certainty. He told me he had lost everything in a storm that sank his ships, but that he would return in 2 years to offer me the finest spices in the world. I laughed. My advisors laughed. 2 years later, he returned, not just with spices, but commanding a fleet larger than the one he had lost. What did this man have? The wealthy mind. He didn't wait to have money to think like a prosperous merchant. He thought like a prosperous man, while he still smelled of salt and defeat. And it was this mindset that brought him back to the top. Because genuine wealth begins in the mind, in invisible habits, in decisions you make when you're broke. Most people only think about money when it's missing, and this delay condemns them to financial servitude forever. They chase after money like someone chasing their own shadow. The more they run, the more the shadow moves away, because they're looking in the wrong place. The truly wealthy don't think about money. They think about value, about problems they can solve, about people they can serve, about systems they can create. Money comes as a natural consequence, like fruit that grows from a well-tended tree. But the tree comes first, always. Do you want to know what's the difference between you and those who constantly prosper? They made a fundamental decision you haven't made yet. They decided to become rich in mind before becoming rich in pocket. They cultivated the discipline, vision, and patience necessary to harvest in any soil, in any season. While you wait for money to arrive to start living like the wealthy, they live like the wealthy so money will come. While you save energy for when you have resources, they invest energy to create resources. This mental inversion is the secret that separates the prosperous from the eternally needy. So answer me honestly. Do your decisions today reflect the mind of someone who is already wealthy, or someone who is still waiting for wealth to find them? Because if you can't be rich with $10, you'll never be rich with 10 million. Wealth is a skill, not an accident. And like every skill, it needs to be practiced first in the mind, then in life. Number 2, the fatal error of seeking wealth to escape fear. You're lying to yourself. You say you want to get rich to have freedom, but deep down you know you're running from fear. Fear of not having enough, fear of going without, fear of being judged by others. And this fear is sabotaging every penny you earn, because those who run from fear never reach prosperity. They just change prisons. I need to confess something to you. At the beginning of my reign, I was also running. I judged my wealth by external appearances. I counted robes in my wardrobe, servants in my halls, barley reserves in my granaries. I thought wealth was accumulation, that the more I had stored, the safer I'd be. But security based on accumulation is a cruel illusion, because it's never enough. The fear of scarcity is like a black hole. No matter how much you throw into it, it keeps sucking. You earn 1,000. You want 2,000. You earn 10,000. You need 20,000. And even when you get the 20,000, fear whispers that it's still not enough to be safe. So you accumulate, save, hide. And paradoxically, the more you have, the more afraid you become of losing it. I knew a man in Tyre who owned more cattle than he could count. His land stretched across entire valleys. His granaries overflowed with grain, but he lived tormented. He couldn't sleep properly because he feared thieves would invade his properties. He wouldn't travel because he feared his servants would rob him. He didn't even trust his own children because he feared they wanted his inheritance before his time. He had everything and had nothing. He owned a fortune and was enslaved by his own fear. This is what happens when you seek wealth to escape fear. You might get the money, but the fear comes along, and fear spends more than desire. It spends your peace, your confidence, your relationships, your ability to enjoy what you've conquered. You become a beggar disguised as wealthy. The truly wealthy don't run from fear. They face it before money arrives. They learn to live with little without despair. They learn to plan without anguish. They learn to invest without illusion. They master the fear of scarcity while still living in scarcity. And when abundance comes, they have the emotional structure to sustain it. Because here's the truth, no one tells you. Fear doesn't disappear when you get rich. It just changes clothes. If before you feared not having, later you fear losing. If before you feared failing, later you fear not being worthy of success. If before you feared judgment for being poor, later you fear judgment for being rich. The difference lies in how you relate to this fear. The poor let fear make their decisions. The wealthy use fear as an advisor, not as a master. The poor ask, "What if I lose everything?" The wealthy ask, "What can I learn from this possibility?" The poor are paralyzed by uncertainty. The wealthy prosper in uncertainty because they know it's life's only constant. So stop trying to run from the fear of scarcity. Stop accumulating money like someone hoarding blankets in an endless winter. The fear of scarcity can only be cured with generosity, with sharing, with the courage to invest in the future, even when the present seems insufficient. When you stop running from fear and start walking toward purpose, something magical happens. Money stops being the goal and becomes a tool. You stop asking, "How much can I save?" and start asking, "How much can I multiply?" You stop seeking security in what you possess and start finding security in what you can create. The real test of your financial maturity isn't how much you have in your account. It's how you behave when the account is empty. If in that moment you maintain dignity, generosity, and vision for the future, you're ready to be truly wealthy. But if you despair, cling, become petty, then you're still a slave to fear. And slaves to fear never become kings of prosperity. So answer me, are you seeking wealth to build a kingdom or to build a fortress? Because kingdoms expand and fortresses only resist. And in the end, even the greatest fortresses fall. Number 3. The metaphor of the dirty mirror and the poor mind. Have you ever tried to get ready in front of a dirty mirror? No matter how many times you comb your hair or adjust your clothes, the reflection remains distorted. You can change clothes 1,000 times, but while the mirror is dirty, you'll never see yourself clearly. This is exactly what happens with your mind when it comes to money. No matter how many strategies you learn or how many opportunities appear, if your mind is dirty with limiting beliefs, the result will always be the same: scarcity. After decades observing kings, merchants, and peasants, I discovered something disturbing. The difference between the wealthy and the poor isn't in the size of inheritance, the luck of investments, or the quality of connections. It's in the clarity of mind. The poor look at money through a dirty mirror and see threats where opportunities exist. They see guilt where they should see gratitude. They see scarcity where they could see abundance. The poor mind is like a mirror covered by layers of dust accumulated over the years. Each financial disappointment adds a layer. Every no you heard about money in childhood adds another. Each failure you interpreted as proof of your inability adds one more. And gradually, your ability to see opportunities becomes compromised. You start to see only what confirms your limitations. I remember a woman who came to my palace seeking justice. She had inherited fertile lands from her father, but lived in misery. When I asked why, she told me the lands were cursed because her father had died poor. In her mind, prosperity was impossible because she came from a poor family. She had resources, but her dirty mind prevented her from seeing them. I had my advisors help her clean her internal mirror. 2 years later, she returned to thank me. The same lands she saw as a curse had become her blessing. The dirty mind makes you interpret everything through the filter of scarcity. When a prosperous person offers you an opportunity, you think, there must be a catch. When a chance appears, you think, it must be too late for me. When you earn money, you think, it won't last. And as you think, you act. As you act, you reap. And what you reap confirms what you thought. It's a vicious cycle that perpetuates until you decide to clean the mirror. But here's what few understand. There's no point in changing strategy if you don't change your mind first. You can learn about investments, about entrepreneurship, about financial management. But if your mind is dirty, you'll sabotage everything you learn. You'll find excuses not to apply. You'll find reasons to give up. You'll attract situations that confirm your limiting beliefs. The clean mind, on the other hand, is like a crystal clear mirror. It reflects reality without distortions. It sees opportunities where they truly exist. It recognizes risks without being paralyzed by them. It understands that abundance and scarcity aren't external situations, but internal states that manifest in reality. Those with clean minds prosper in any situation. They can start without money and create fortune. They can lose everything and rebuild. They can be rejected 1,000 times and keep trying. Because their self-esteem doesn't depend on their bank balance. Their confidence doesn't fluctuate with the market. Their vision doesn't cloud with the first obstacles. So how do you clean the mirror of the mind? First, by recognizing it's dirty, by stopping blaming circumstances and taking responsibility for your results. Second, by identifying the beliefs that limit you. Third, by replacing these beliefs with truths that empower you. And fourth, by acting according to this new mentality until it becomes natural. Cleaning the mind is more important than changing jobs. It's more important than changing cities. It's more important than changing strategies. Because when the mind is clean, you can prosper in any job, in any city, with any strategy. But when the mind is dirty, you fail even in the best conditions. The question isn't whether you'll have opportunities. You already do. The question is whether you're seeing them through a clean or dirty mirror. The question isn't whether you have potential to prosper. You do. The question is whether your beliefs are releasing this potential or imprisoning it. Stop changing strategies like someone changing clothes in front of a dirty mirror. Stop looking for the magic formula that will solve all your financial problems. The formula is in cleaning your mind. And this cleaning starts now, with you admitting that maybe, just maybe, the problem isn't the world out there. The problem is the mirror through which you're looking at the world. When you clean this mirror, you'll discover you've always had everything you needed to prosper. The opportunity, the talent, the capacity. It was all there, waiting for you to see clearly. Number 4. The invisible habit that costs you dearly every day. There's a decision you make hundreds of times a day that's silently destroying your prosperity. You don't even realize you're making this decision because it's become automatic, invisible, natural as breathing. But this invisible decision is more expensive than any bad investment you've ever made, more destructive than any financial crisis you've faced. And the cruelest part is that you repeat it without thinking, like a ritual of self-sabotage. The most expensive decision of your life isn't where to invest your money. It's how you choose to spend your time, your energy, your attention. Every moment, you're making one of two fundamental decisions: build or consume. And most people choose to consume without even realizing they had the option to build. You consume entertainment when you could build skills. You consume worry when you could build solutions. You consume gossip when you could build relationships. You consume anxiety about the future when you could build the present. And every time you choose to consume instead of build, you're paying an invisible price. You're trading your future prosperity for immediate comfort. Let me tell you about two young men I met in my court. Both had the same age, the same education, the same opportunities. The first spent his days talking about the kingdom's problems, complaining about taxes, criticizing others' decisions. He consumed information, consumed entertainment, consumed time. The second spent his days learning trades, observing merchants, asking questions of the wise. He built knowledge, built relationships, built value. 5 years later, the first was still complaining about the same problems. The second had become one of Jerusalem's most respected merchants. The only difference between them was this invisible decision they made hundreds of times a day: build or consume. The invisible habit of poverty is constant consumption. Consumption of content that adds no value. Consumption of products you don't need. Consumption of experiences that don't transform. Consumption of relationships that only drain energy. And the worst type of consumption: consuming problems, dwelling on difficulties, feeding worries, chewing on tragedies that haven't even happened yet. Those who build with purpose end up consuming with peace. Because when you build value, you generate resources. When you generate resources, you can consume without guilt. When you consume without guilt, you truly enjoy what you have. But those who consume on impulse live with constant guilt. They know they're wasting time, money, opportunities. And this guilt generates more anxiety, which generates more need to consume for distraction. The wealthy aren't those who earn more. They're those who build more. They build systems that generate income while they sleep. They build relationships that transform into opportunities. They build knowledge that transforms into wisdom. They build reputation that transforms into trust. And only after they've built enough do they allow themselves to consume. Every time you pick up your phone to check social media when you could be learning something new, you're choosing to consume. Every time you complain about a problem instead of working on a solution, you're choosing to consume. Every time you spend money you don't have on things you don't need to impress people you don't like, you're choosing to consume. But the worst isn't what you're consuming. It's what you're failing to build. Because time is the only truly limited resource you have. You can recover lost money, but you can't recover wasted time. And every minute you spend consuming without purpose is a minute you could have used to build your future. Transformation begins when you make this decision conscious. Before doing anything, ask yourself, will what I'm about to do help me build something? Or just consume something? If the answer is build, do it. If it's just consume, stop and think if it's worth it. Start small. Instead of consuming a Netflix series, build a new skill. Instead of consuming gossip about others' lives, build your own life. Instead of consuming worry about problems that may never happen, build solutions for problems that actually exist. The builder sees opportunity where the consumer sees only product. The builder sees learning where the consumer sees only entertainment. The builder sees investment where the consumer sees only expense. And over time, their lives become completely different. One grows constantly. The other remains in the same place complaining that life is unfair. So tell me, throughout today, how many times did you choose to build? And how many times did you choose just to consume? Because this invisible accounting is what determines whether you'll prosper or remain where you are. And the decision to change this account is being made now, at this exact moment. Are you going to build or just consume this knowledge I'm sharing? The answer to this question already shows what type of person you are and what type of future you're creating for yourself. Number 5. The secret of those who rule time and multiply wealth. When God offered me anything I desired, everyone expected me to ask for gold, armies, or territories. Even I thought I would ask for that. But in the silence of that night, something inside me whispered a different word: wisdom. And it was this decision that changed not only my destiny, but my relationship with time. Because those who possess wisdom rule time, and those who rule time rule everything else. You live in a temporal prison you built yourself. You run against the clock as if it were your enemy. You want instant results for problems that took years to form. You plant today and want to harvest tomorrow. And this anxiety with time is destroying your ability to create true wealth. Because real wealth has deep roots, and roots only grow in the silence of waiting. The difference between the wealthy and the poor isn't just money. It's the relationship with time. The poor are slaves to time. They live in the desperation of now, the anguish of yesterday, the anxiety of tomorrow. The wealthy are masters of time. They use the present to build the future, learn from the past without being trapped in it, and await results with the patience of those who know they planted well. I knew a young farmer who lived desperate because his crops didn't grow fast enough. He watered too much, constantly disturbed the soil, dug up seeds to see if they were germinating. The result was always the same: weak plants, small harvests, constant frustration. One day, a wise man told him, "Stop trying to rush God. Plant, water, and wait. Nature has its own timer, and you're not responsible for it." This young man learned something few understand. True prosperity requires deep roots, and deep roots only form when you stop disturbing the soil constantly. When you plant once, well planted, and then have the courage to wait, anxiety kills more dreams than lack of opportunity. The anxious person is a compulsive consumer. They consume information trying to accelerate results. They consume strategies trying to find shortcuts. They consume products trying to buy time. But they can't consume patience, because patience can't be bought. It's conquered in silence, in waiting, in the confidence that you've done your part and can now wait for nature to do hers. Those who rule time understand there are two currencies in life: money and time. Most people spend time to earn money. The wise spend money to gain time. They invest in education to accelerate learning. They invest in systems to automate processes. They invest in people to multiply efforts. They buy time with money to then use that time to create more money. But here's the secret few discover. True mastery of time isn't accelerating results. It's sowing even without applause. It's working even when no one is watching. It's persisting even when results take time to appear, because those who sow in silence reap in abundance. The wise sow every day, even when they don't see sprouting. They plant relationships that will only bear fruit years later. They invest in knowledge that will only be useful in the future. They develop skills that will only be valued later. They understand there's a time to plant and a time to harvest, and that trying to harvest in planting time is a guaranteed recipe for frustration. Do you want to know why some people constantly prosper? Because they don't wait to feel like acting. They don't wait to have time to start. They don't wait to have money to invest. They start with what they have, where they are, however they can, And they do this every day, even when they don't feel like it. Especially when they don't feel like it. Discipline in anonymity is what builds prosperity in visibility. The small investments no one sees transform into the great harvests everyone admires. The daily minutes dedicated to personal growth transform into years of prosperous life. The small savings no one notices transform into the great reserves everyone envies. But this requires something your generation has lost: the ability to wait. To plant today without knowing exactly when you'll harvest. To invest energy without guarantee of immediate return. To work in the dark with faith that someday light will come. This ability to wait isn't passivity. It's intelligent activity. It's working with purpose while waiting with patience. Time isn't your enemy. It's your ally. But it only becomes an ally when you stop trying to control it and start collaborating with it. When you understand there are times to sow and times to harvest, times to work and times to rest, times to invest and times to enjoy. So stop fighting against time as if it were possible to defeat it. Start dancing with it. Plant today what you want to harvest tomorrow. Invest today in what you want to enjoy later. Learn today what you want to apply in the future, and have the wisdom to wait for each seed to germinate in its right time. Those who rule time don't try to accelerate results. They try to accelerate the quality of the process. And when the process is excellent, results are inevitable, no matter how long they take to arrive. Number 6. The spiritual warning to those who pray for prosperity. You pray for money like someone calling for help. You kneel asking for financial miracles, but get up and continue with the same habits that created your problems. And then you wonder why your prayers aren't answered. Let me reveal something. Few have the courage to say, heaven doesn't respond to empty words. It responds to inner and practical preparation. God won't deliver what you don't have the structure to sustain. For years, I saw people come to the temple asking for prosperity. They promised tithes when they got rich. They swore to change their lives when God blessed them. They begged for opportunities while wasting the ones they already had. And they got indignant when prayers seemed not to work, as if God were obligated to reward laziness and irresponsibility just because pretty words were spoken. The spiritual truth about prosperity is brutally simple. Your prayers for money need to come accompanied by structure, discipline, and a clear plan. Because God won't do for you what you can do for yourself. He won't balance your budget if you don't learn basic math. He won't multiply your income if you don't invest in your skills. He won't protect your wealth if you don't learn to manage it. I remember a man who came asking me to pray for his prosperity. He had lost 3 businesses in a row and wanted me to intercede with God for him to find buried gold. When I asked why the previous businesses had failed, he gave me 1,000 excuses. Dishonest partners, difficult market, bad luck. When I asked what he had learned from each failure, he fell silent. He had learned nothing. He had only blamed others and expected God to magically solve his problems. Heaven works with people who work. God prospers those who prepare to prosper. There's no point asking for financial blessing if you don't even have a notebook to write down your income and expenses. There's no point crying out for opportunities if you're not developing skills to take advantage of them. There's no point begging for abundance if your mind still functions with a scarcity mentality. Your prayers need to have feet. They need to be accompanied by action. When you pray for financial wisdom, you need to be willing to study. When you pray for opportunities, you need to be prepared to work. When you pray for multiplication, you need to be planting. Prayer without action is presumption. Action without prayer is arrogance, but prayer with action is power. Even organizing your accounts is a spiritual act when done with purpose and vision. Creating a spending spreadsheet is practical prayer. Eliminating debt is worship in motion. Investing in education is applied faith, because you're demonstrating that you believe in a better future and are willing to work to create it. Many think spirituality and prosperity are incompatible. That being spiritual is being poor. That wanting to prosper is being materialistic. This is one of the most destructive lies ever planted in the human mind. God wants you to prosper, but He wants you to prosper with purpose, to use your prosperity to bless others, to be a channel, not a reservoir. The problem isn't you wanting to be rich. The problem is you wanting to be rich for the wrong reasons. If you want wealth just to impress others, your prayers won't be heard. If you want wealth just to feel superior, you're not ready for it. If you want wealth just to satisfy your whims, you'll waste it. But if you want wealth to solve problems, to serve people, to create value, to leave a legacy, then your prayers become powerful. Because now you're not just asking to receive, you're asking to give. And the universe conspires in favor of those who want to give more than receive. The most powerful prayer you can make isn't, "God, give me money." It's, "God, transform me into the person who can handle prosperity wisely and generously." Because when you become that person, prosperity comes naturally, as a consequence of who you became, not as a reward for what you asked. Start treating your finances as an altar, each financial decision as an offering, each investment as an act of faith, each saving as a demonstration of discipline, each generosity as an expression of gratitude. When your finances become an extension of your spirituality, they transform into a tool of transformation. And remember, God won't give you a company to manage if you can't even manage your allowance. He won't entrust you with millions if you're not faithful with pennies. He won't bless you with abundance if you haven't learned to be grateful with little. Prosperity is gradual conquest, not instant miracle. So stop asking for financial miracles and start becoming a financial miracle. Stop expecting God to change your situation and start letting God change you. Because when you change, your situation changes automatically. And when your situation changes from the inside out, it changes forever. Your prayers are heard, but the answers come in the form of opportunities for you to grow, learn, and become the person who can sustain what you're asking for. Accept these opportunities, work with them, and prepare to be surprised by the universe's generosity with those who prepare to receive it. Number 7, the final call, applying wisdom in daily practice. We've reached the moment of truth. You may have absorbed every word I said, may have felt every provocation in your chest, may have agreed with every principle. But none of this matters if you leave here and continue living as you always have. Because wisdom without application is just pretty information. And pretty information doesn't pay bills, doesn't build wealth, doesn't transform lives. Stop seeking more formulas. Stop looking for more strategies. Stop collecting more knowledge. You already know enough to begin. What you need now is to observe the behavior patterns of the truly wealthy and apply them in your daily life, not as superficial imitation, but as deep transformation. The financial wise men I met throughout my life had certain characteristics in common. They built before they needed to. They never waited for emergency to arrive to create their reserves. They never waited for opportunity to appear to develop their skills. They never waited for crisis to pass to learn about investments. They prepared in prosperity to prosper in storm. They invested before they showed off. While others bought things to impress, they bought assets to grow. While others spent to look rich, they saved to become rich. They understood that ostentation is prosperity's imposter, that those who need to look rich usually aren't rich. They honored before they demanded. They fulfilled their commitments even when the other side didn't. They paid their debts even when they could delay. They kept their word even when it hurt them financially. Because they knew reputation is the most valuable asset anyone can have, and that reputation is built in adversity, not in prosperity. They recognized their limits with humility. They didn't try to invest in everything. They didn't try to do business in all areas. They didn't try to be experts in all subjects. They chose their battlefields wisely and dedicated themselves to completely mastering those fields. Because the diluted disperses, but the concentrated multiplies. Now answer me with absolute honesty. If a stranger observed your attitudes in the last 30 days, what conclusion would they reach about you? Would they see a king in preparation or just another servant of haste? Would they see someone building a kingdom or someone running after survival? Would they see silent discipline or just noisy agitation? Your daily attitudes are your true resume. Not what you say about money, but how you behave with it. Not what you dream of doing when you get rich, but what you do today being poor. Not the grandiose plans you have, but the small decisions you make when no one is watching. The true test of your financial maturity happens in moments without an audience. When you're alone deciding whether to save or spend. When you need to choose between immediate pleasure and long-term investment. When you have to choose between impressing others and investing in yourself. It's in these moments that who you really are is defined. If you want to start living like true financial royalty, start today. Not tomorrow, not next Monday, not when the situation improves. Today, make a real choice. Just one. It may be small, but let it be real. Cut an unnecessary expense. Open an investment account. Read a book about finances. Organize your accounts. Stop complaining about prices and start working on your income. One real decision followed by real action already puts you ahead of 90% of people who only talk about prosperity, because most live in the world of intentions. They intend to save, intend to invest, intend to learn, intend to change, but intention is the graveyard of dreams. The kingdom of prosperity isn't ruled by those with more talent. It's ruled by those with more consistency, not by those who know more theories, by those who apply more principles. Not by those with more luck, by those who create more opportunities through constant preparation. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be consistent. You don't need to always be right. You need to always persist. You don't need to have all the answers. You need to ask all the right questions. And the most important question you can ask is, what can I do today, with what I have, where I am, to start building the prosperity I desire? So go. Leave here different from how you entered, not just with more knowledge, but with more determination, not just with more information, but with more transformation. Apply at least one thing you learned in the next 24 hours, and then apply another, and another. Because in the end, you won't be judged by what you knew, but by what you did with what you knew, not by what you planned, but by what you executed. Not by what you promised, but by what you delivered. And today is the first day of the rest of your financial life. Use it wisely. Live it with purpose. Transform it into foundation for the kingdom you're destined to build. Because you weren't born to be a servant of circumstances. You were born to be king of your own destiny. And kings act with decision, plan with wisdom, and build with patience. The question isn't whether you'll prosper. The question is when you'll decide to start behaving like someone who has already prospered. This decision is in your hands. And this moment is now. There's a sacred moment that happens every day at dawn. It's when the sun decides to rise once more, even knowing it will have to set at the end of the day. It doesn't question whether it's worth shining for just a few hours. It doesn't negotiate with clouds. It doesn't wait for guarantees that it will be appreciated. It simply rises, illuminates, and transforms everything around it by the simple fact of being who it is. You're in that moment now. After everything we've shared, you have two choices. You can return to life as usual, carrying these words as just another pretty piece of information in memory. Or you can choose to be like the sun. Rise every day and shine, not because you have guarantees, but because that's your deepest nature. The wealth you seek already exists within you, not as sleeping potential, but as reality waiting to be lived. Every conscious decision you make from here forward is a ray of sunlight breaking through the darkness of your current situation. Every habit you change is a seed of prosperity being planted in fertile soil. Remember, kings aren't born ready. They become kings through small daily choices no one sees. In the silent discipline of moments without an audience. In the courage to build when everyone is just consuming. In the wisdom to wait when everyone is running. If these words touch something real inside you, if you recognize that the time has come to stop living as a servant and start reigning over your own financial life, then continue this journey with me. Subscribe to this channel and allow wisdom to continue transforming your reality, one truth at a time. Because what we've just planted together is only the beginning. And true beginnings have no end. They multiply into new beginnings, infinitely, like light that's born with each dawn.